want you to sit with me for a minute. Pull up a chair. Because what I'm about to tell you is something I wish anybody, had sat me down and said when I was still young enough to do something about it. This is not a story I enjoy telling. But I've made peace with the fact that if my pain keeps even one person from walking the same road I walked, then maybe it was all worth something after all. And if this kind of story speaks to you, if you feel like somebody finally gets it, please subscribe to this channel. There are more of us out here than you think, and every single one of us has something to teach you. I was 63 years old when I handed over the last of what my late husband Gerald and I had built together. 31 years of marriage. 2 kids raised. A small house paid off and a modest retirement account that we had contributed to faithfully since 1987. We were not rich people. We were careful people. And careful people, I have learned, are sometimes the easiest ones to fool. His name was Douglas. He had a warm handshake in an office with a leather chair and a diploma on the wall from a university I recognized. He wore a watch that cost more than my first car, and when he smiled at you, you felt like you were the most important person in the room. Looking back, I know now that is exactly the kind of smile you should run from. Gerald passed in the spring of 2017. Pancreatic cancer. Quick and cruel, the way that disease always is. We had 40 days from diagnosis to the day I stood in the cemetery in my black dress that was too tight because I hadn't worn it since my sister's funeral 3 years before. 40 days is not enough time to prepare for anything. And then suddenly I was alone, 61 years old, with a house, a car, 2 adult children in different states, and a retirement account that now had only my name on it. My daughter flew in for 2 weeks. My son drove up on weekends when he could. They were good children. They are good children. But grief has a way of making you feel like you are standing behind glass, watching everyone else live their lives in a world you can see but cannot quite reach anymore. I was not in any condition to make financial decisions. I knew that. What I did not know was that I was about to make the biggest one of my life. My neighbor Carol, God love her, she meant well, introduced me to Douglas at a church fundraiser about 4 months after Gerald died. He had done something for her cousin, some kind of annuity restructuring, and she said he was wonderful and trustworthy and that he really cared about widows and retirees. Those were the words she used. Widows and retirees. Like it was a specialty. Like it was something to be proud of. I know now there is a term for what Douglas did. It is called elder financial abuse. At the time, I just thought I had found someone who understood my situation. We met in his office 3 times before I signed anything. He was patient. He never rushed me. He brought coffee. He asked about Gerald, and I cried, and he handed me tissues from a box on the corner of his desk that I now suspect he kept there specifically for moments like that. He explained things in plain language. He drew diagrams on a yellow legal pad. He told me that my money was sitting in low-yield accounts that were barely keeping pace with inflation, and that he could move it into a structure that would give me income for the rest of my life and still leave something for my children. He used the word fiduciary. He said it often and with great confidence. I did not know at the time that saying the word and being the thing are 2 very different matters. I signed the paperwork on a Thursday afternoon in November. The office smelled like coffee and old wood and something faintly like cedar. I remember that because when I got back to my car, I sat in the parking lot for a long time and told myself I had done something smart. I told myself Gerald would have approved. I told myself I was going to be okay. That was the last day I felt that way for a very long time. The first sign was small enough that I almost missed it. I asked Douglas in the spring of the following year for a full accounting of my portfolio. He sent me a document that was 12 pages long, full of graphs and numbers that looked professional and reassuring. But when I called the number listed for the custodial account, the representative I reached seemed confused by some of the details. She said she would look into it. She called me back 2 days later and said there appeared to be some discrepancies and that I should perhaps consult an attorney. I did not understand what she meant. I called Douglas. He told me the woman I had spoken with was new and didn't understand how the accounts were structured. He said everything was fine. He said it with that same warm voice and that same patient tone. And because I wanted to believe him, because believing him was so much easier than the alternative, I let it go. But something had shifted in me. Something quiet and stubborn that Gerald used to call my radar. He always said I had good radar when I trusted it. I had stopped trusting it when I was grieving. Now it was waking back up. Over the next several months, I started paying closer attention. I asked for quarterly statements. Sometimes they came promptly. Sometimes they did not come at all, and when I followed up, there were excuses. A software transition. A mailing issue. A new assistant who had made an error. Each excuse was reasonable on its own. Together, they formed a pattern I did not want to name. It was my son Michael who finally sat me down. He was visiting in October, just over a year after I had signed those papers. He had been asking questions of his own, quietly, without telling me. He had a friend who worked in financial compliance, and he had shared some of what I told him about my accounts. The friend had said things that scared Michael badly enough to drive 8 hours to sit at my kitchen table and ask me, gently but directly, if he could see everything. We spent 3 days going through documents. Michael's friend joined us by phone. By the end of those 3 days, I understood what had happened, at least in broad strokes. The specifics took another 18 months of attorneys and investigators and long conversations in offices that smelled nothing like cedar. Douglas had moved a significant portion of my retirement savings into products that paid him extraordinarily high commissions. Some of those products were inappropriate for someone in my situation and were structured in ways that locked up my money for years. A smaller but still devastating portion had been moved in ways that were not just improper but fraudulent. He had done this to other clients. I was not the first. I was not the last. I want to pause here and say something directly to you, whoever you are watching this. If you are older, if you are recently widowed or divorced or retired, if you are at a point in your life where you are trusting someone else with money you spent decades accumulating, please hear me. The people who prey on us are not strangers in dark alleys. They are people with warm handshakes and nice offices and diplomas on the wall. They are patient and kind, and they ask about your late husband and keep tissues on the corner of their desk. They know exactly when you are most vulnerable, and they know how to speak the language of care while they are doing you harm. This is not a small problem. It is not rare. And it almost always happens to people who did everything right their whole lives. There are things I know now that I did not know then, and I want to give them to you plainly. A financial advisor who is a true fiduciary is legally required to act in your best interest. But not everyone who calls themselves a financial advisor is a fiduciary. Some operate under what is called the suitability standard, which means they only have to recommend something that is suitable for you, not necessarily the best option for you. Those two standards are very different, and the difference can cost you everything. Before you sign a single document, before you move a single dollar, ask directly and in writing whether the person advising you is a fiduciary at all times, not just some of the time. Get that answer in writing. If they hesitate or qualify their answer, walk away. Verify credentials independently. Do not take a business card or a diploma at face value. FINRA, which is the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority, has a free online tool called BrokerCheck. You can search any licensed broker or advisor and see their registration history, any complaints filed against them, any disciplinary actions, any arbitration cases. It takes 5 minutes. I did not know this tool existed. I wish someone had told me. Never allow anyone to have discretionary control over your accounts without a system of checks. That means someone other than your advisor should be reviewing your statements. A trusted family member, an independent accountant, even a second advisor. The moment someone is the only eyes on your money, you are vulnerable. Unsolicited contact after a life event is a red flag. Widows and widowers are specifically targeted. People in financial transitions, divorce, inheritance, retirement are specifically targeted. If someone reaches out to you, or is referred to you through a casual social connection shortly after a major life change, slow down. Take months, not weeks, before making major financial decisions. Grief and transition impair judgment in ways that are neurologically documented. There is no financial emergency so urgent that it cannot wait until you have had time to think clearly and get independent advice. Ask about compensation. Ask how your advisor is paid. Ask specifically whether they receive commissions from the products they recommend. A fee-only advisor charges you directly and does not earn commissions. A commission-based advisor earns money when you buy certain products. Neither structure is inherently corrupt, but you deserve to know which one you are working with, and you deserve to understand how that might influence what they recommend to you. Trust your radar. If something feels wrong, if statements are late, if answers are vague, if you feel rushed or confused or somehow ashamed for asking questions, that feeling is information. Honor it. Gerald always said I had good radar. He was right. I just stopped listening to it at the worst possible time. The legal process took 2 years. There was a settlement, the terms of which I cannot discuss. What I can tell you is that I did not recover everything. I never will. I am 70 years old now, and I live differently than I planned. My children help more than they should have to. The retirement I imagined with Gerald, the one with the small garden and the road trips and maybe a grandchild or two underfoot, looks different now than it was supposed to. But I want to be careful here, because this story is not only about loss. It is also about something that grew back. After everything happened, I found myself doing something I had not done since I was a young woman. I started talking. I started talking at my church, and then at the senior center, and then at a meeting that a local attorney organized for people who had been victimized by financial fraud. I found that I was not unusual. I found rooms full of people, intelligent, careful, hard-working people, who had been through versions of the same thing. Some had lost more than I had. Some had lost less but felt the shame more acutely. And what I noticed in every single one of those rooms was that the shame was the thing that had kept them quiet longest. The shame of feeling foolish. The shame of thinking, I should have known better. Here's what I want to say about that shame. It is a lie. These predators are sophisticated. They are often licensed and credentialed. They are chosen carefully by systems designed to gain your trust. Being deceived by one of them does not mean you were foolish. It means you were human. It means you trusted someone the way humans are supposed to be able to trust one another. The fault is not yours. But that same shame, the shame that kept you quiet, is exactly the thing these predators count on. They know that most people would rather absorb a loss silently than admit publicly that they were deceived. They know that older people especially are reluctant to tell their children, reluctant to appear diminished, reluctant to make a fuss. That silence is their protection. Taking it away from them is one of the most powerful things you can do. So I talk. I have been talking for 5 years now. And the reason I am here, the reason I am telling this to a camera instead of just to the people in my church hall, is because I know that somewhere out there is a 60-year-old woman who just lost her husband and is sitting across from someone with a warm handshake and a cedar-scented office. And I want her to hear me before she signs anything. I want her to know what a fiduciary standard actually means. I want her to know about broker check. I want her to know that grief is not the time to make permanent financial decisions. I want her to know that she can say, I need more time, and a good advisor will respect that, and a bad one will not, and that distinction alone is worth knowing. I want her to know that the shame is a lie. And I want her to know that there are people who have walked this road before her who are willing to talk about it plainly and without flinching, because the alternative, the silence, the isolation, the slow erosion of a life carefully built, is simply not acceptable anymore. If any part of this spoke to you, please subscribe to this channel. Share it with someone you love who is navigating a transition, who is recently retired, who is newly widowed, who is trusting someone with their life savings right now. You might not know they need it. They might not know they need it. But somewhere in the back of their mind, if something has felt wrong, your sharing this might be the thing that finally makes them stop and ask the questions that need to be asked. Gerald used to say that the most valuable thing one person can give another is not money or advice or even time. It is the truth told gently and without an agenda. This is mine. Take whatever part of it is useful to you. Leave the rest. And please, take care of yourself out there. You work too hard and too long and love too much to lose it now.